So I think a good point to start this conversation is to discuss what is direct marketing. So, as we do know, direct marketing is when I come to you, you don't come to me. So, I approach somebody, and I can do that approach in many ways. I can do that approach telephonically, I can do it electronically, and I think, Rocky, maybe you want to speak to the various electronic ways. But the main thing is, I come to you, you don't come to me. And the trick is, I come to you for the direct or indirect purpose of selling my stuff or trying to ask you for donations. And we see the donation thing coming up quite a lot now, because even if I just ask you for a donation, I would be doing direct marketing or indirectly trying to sell my stuff to you. Rocky, do you want to touch on the different modes of electronic communication?
Yeah, sure. POPIA actually has a very specific, or they try and define what electronic communications are, and it's a very technical definition. But I think the crux of it is if you're going to be sending any form of email, SMS, MMS, automated voice calling, recordings, all of those methods of communication where you intend to kind of directly or indirectly market something would satisfy the provision here when we talk about direct marketing under POPIA and specifically under Section 69. It doesn't include things like pamphlets, handing out pamphlets, calling on the phone era. I know you have a great story about that, or even just, approaching someone on the street. That definitely is not an electronic communication.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting also to note that if you are doing direct marketing in a poppy world, you need to process personal information. So if I had to hand out pamphlets to you, certainly in terms of the Consumer Protection Act, it would be direct marketing. But it wouldn't be direct marketing in terms of poppy because I'm not processing any personal information. Likewise, if we go back to electronic direct marketing, if I were to use a social media platform to do direct marketing and I feed personal information into the platform and you were to tell the platform if Nicole is a user, then send her targeted ads, then I think that is electronic direct marketing as well. Not if I use a lookalike audience. I say look for females between 30 and 40 who like traveling, then I wouldn't be processing personal information. But if I put in that criteria and it involves personal information, that is where we start triggering poppy. By the way, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but the definition in the Consumer Protection Act mirrors the definition in poppy. Poppy went and copied and pasted the definition out of the CPA. They changed the word person to data subject, but there's a very different definition for electronic communication. So, in terms of the CPA, of course, electronic communication includes telemarketing. But now, talking about telemarketing, Rakhee, Nicole, what is your most irritating form of direct marketing without telling our clients?
No, absolutely the calls. I mean, the spam calls, right, Nicole? They're so frustrating.
I am on my end rather hate automated machines. So when you pick up the phone and there's just that pre-recorded message that greets you on the other end.
Which is, of course, electronic direct marketing. But Rakhee, your telemarketing, as you know, you're very lucky because or you're not very lucky. Yours is going to continue. I'm messing that one up. So the drafters of Poppy decided to be ugly to electronic direct marketers and be very nice to telemarketers because telemarketers bring in a lot of money into our economy. So we didn't want our call centers to up and leave South Africa, but they're bringing too much money. So that is why we decided not to regulate telemarketing as harshly as we regulate electronic marketing. So, of course, when you hit electronic direct marketing in a poppy world, that is where you hit Section 69. Now, Section 69 is based on the EU Privacy Directive, so it is very similar to the overseas legislation, but in true South African fashion, we of course went further than the international norms. So whereas international norms also recognize some people are customers, and if they are not customers, then you're going to need an opt-in. Of course, POPI is far stricter as far as the opt-in requirements are concerned. Our opt-in requirements must be in a specific manner and form. Do you guys get a lot of pushback on Form 4 and that specific form that is prescribed in terms of our regulations?
Well, personally speaking, I haven't seen one Form 4 actually reach my inbox in terms of somebody direct marketing to me. And I think there's a tendency, because the form is so onerous, that people are shying away from using it or trying to see how they can work around needing to hit that Form 4 requirement.
Absolutely, Nicole. And I find that I always say my direct marketing clients are just about my favorite clients because they think so differently to lawyers. And they come up with all these nice ways of incorporating Form 4 in a way that we don't even realize they Form 4ing us. For example, I don't know if you've seen any of those emails that you're getting from quasi-celebrities, where a celebrity like a cricket player or so is now sending you an email. And that is such wonderful clickbait because you open that email, why is this person emailing me? And very often that is the face of direct marketing because Form 4 wants a human being in there. So the marketers are using a celebrity so that we open our email and then they've got that face for direct marketing, which I think is a genius approach. Opt-out, Rahkee, what are you facing in practice at the moment as far as opt-outs are concerned? Have you got
Uh,
any specific questions on that?
Our clients mainly have been very scared to ask for the consent in terms of Form 4 because of the sort of diminished databases, and the opt-outs, that the questions we've gotten around that are linked to that. Just managing databases in terms of the opt-ins, the opt-outs, and what would you advise a client that has been doing direct marketing until now, and now that POPIA is enforced, they need to ensure that their database is better to comply with POPIA?
Well, first of all, you have to check whether you are dealing with existing customers. And I find that very few of my clients can say, hand on heart, that their entire database is just existing customers. Very often you don't know where the people on your database come from, or you don't have an audit trail. Or when you signed them up initially in the context of a sale, you didn't give them an opt out. So we are all faced with sitting with this contaminated database. And of course, if you want to make it perfectly POPI compliant, you've got no choice. You would have to go back and ask for Form 4 or change your direct marketing and, for example, to telemarketing. But if you want to carry on doing electronic direct marketing, you're now stuck with this contaminated database. You go to them with Form 4, even if you draft it as nice as you possibly can, you're probably going to have 20% of your emails being opened. And overseas under the GDPR, they showed about 6% of that 20% would give you consent, and that wasn't even our very onerous Form 4. So basically, by sending that communication out, which you could also only do on a once-off basis, if people don't respond, they are basically gone. You can't use them again. So I think the risk in sending Form 4s out must certainly be assessed before you send them out. Maybe you want to go for sending strong opt-outs out to lower your risk. But of course, by sending an opt-out out, you cannot cure the fact that you didn't get an opt-in or an opt-out 20 years ago. So you're faced with that commercial versus legal risk, and you have to assess and make a commercial decision here. What are your views on that, girls?
I do think what's quite interesting is that we must perhaps, Era, it would be nice to talk to what a customer means in the context of POPI, because I think there is a misconception. People tend to have this perception that if you buy a database from a third party, or you access information from publicly available sources. So for example, if you Google lawyers and our names would come up, they would then be able to direct market to us because we are in a public domain or a publicly accessible source. And I think the interesting point for people is where we need the actual opt-in Form 4 turns on the definition of customer. And maybe, Era, you want to talk to what customer means in the context of POPI.
Absolutely, Nicole. So a customer in terms of POPI must meet 3 requirements. First of all, you must have obtained the details, the contact details in the context of a sale. Now, a sale in our law certainly means there must be a Mercs, back to Law 101. So we have to have a good or service, and we must have had a purchase price, which makes it very difficult for people asking for donations, because you will not have existing customers, even if they are existing donors. And we can't even ask for an exemption here. So customer, we need that in the context of a sale. I don't think a sale had to happen. I think we can argue if somebody showed a strong interest in our products. I think based on the overseas guidance, we can make out a nice argument that they are already our customers in certain circumstances. Then we can only market our own similar goods and services to them. So something similar to what they already showed interest in or bought from us. We cannot cross-market between different PTY limiteds, between legal entities. We possibly can between different divisions, because it's all one responsible party, but be very careful with cross-marketing. And then where a lot of my clients battle is when you obtained their contact details, even if you obtained it 20 years ago, you should have given them an easy, free opt-out. Then there is, of course, a second opt-out. And that second opt-out must be included in every single one of our direct marketing communications. But that second opt-out doesn't cure the fact that you didn't give them an opt-out when you collected their contact details right in the beginning. So we need to become cleverer with the way we expand our customer database by giving people opt-outs. And we can do that in all sorts of clever ways. So if you don't meet customer, then your choices are move away to another form of marketing, either use print media or consider whether you can do telemarketing. But if you want to carry on with your electronic direct marketing, you are in Form 4 territory. Then you need to go and get consent. And for anybody who still thinks consent is just a general one-liner, tick here to receive direct marketing, not in a POPI world. That ship has sailed. We need a prescribed consent or something substantially similar to that consent. Rahkee, anything you want to add here?
No, I think you've said it all, Era. I think it's definitely a very interesting part of the law, and one that many of our clients have been grappling with. In the race to just getting, basic compliance with POPIA, I don't think many might have applied their mind to this element of compliance with POPIA, because the direct marketing space is extremely nuanced, very interesting, and uses all sorts of interesting technologies and tools that really complicate assessing whether or not there is a requirement for Form 4 consent, or there's an opt-out, or whether you are in fact doing direct marketing activities. And that's always where we want to start, is are you in fact conducting a direct marketing activity? Because if you're not, in terms of POPIA, then you don't need to comply with these very onerous provisions. So for example, when you started the conversation, you mentioned, and a client had asked on their website, they just have an open sort of banner that says, if you want to subscribe to our newsletter, put in your details here. And it actually took me a while to determine whether or not it was direct marketing, because it's not that obvious always. And what we settled on then was the fact that there was no approach. It's similar to a billboard on a highway, which is just advertising. So there's a clear distinction between advertising and direct marketing. So that's, I think, the biggest factor to help you decide whether or not it is direct marketing or not.
And I think you always have to say to yourself, if you do make an approach, what is your real reason for making that approach? Something like a newsletter, if I come to you, you don't come to me, but my real reason for sending it out is actually to sell stuff or to ask for donations, then again, I think you fall squarely within the definition. So certainly some forms can be direct marketing, whereas other forms would not be direct marketing. But Nicole, I think before we end the session, I'm sure you're burning to speak about operators, and what if I use an operator to do the direct marketing on my behalf?
I think that we must just be very careful with when we contract with third parties to do things on our behalf. So remember, operators under POPI mean that somebody is doing something, processing personal information on your behalf, not just performing any service. We have to catch it into that processing of personal information on your behalf. And very importantly, POPI will pick up liability for you as a responsible party for the actions of your operators. And just to end things off, it's important to note that a number of fines and penalties issued under GDPR, for example, have been for direct marketing contraventions, because it's quite a simple test and quite a simple way to prosecute offences. And so it's just so important that customers tick the boxes. You know, I always like to say the first box is, how am I doing this? So is it direct marketing? Then it's, how am I actually doing the marketing? And I always like to put it into old school or new school. You know, old school telemarketing and billboards and handing out pamphlets, new school anything with tech. And then finally, it's, who am I doing it to? Is it an existing customer or not? And then bring those threads together and make sure you're compliant, that you don't fall foul of the law and end up with a transgression and fine.
That's certainly the litigation attorney in you speaking there, Nicole. But thank you very much for your time today. And for anybody who wants to approach us, we won't approach you. If you want to approach us for direct marketing workshops, please feel free to do so. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Bye.